Friends, Romans, countrymen, once again, I'm here to read AGHORA 2 Kundalini by Robert Svoboda. Above me is the support link, streamelements.com/yakovalive/tip, also found in the chat and in the description if you would like to help me scrape by barely all the days of my life. Living as an animal. Right now I'm living off of like rice and iceberg lettuce. I got a job interview coming up. Help me out! Help! Help! Alright. I believe I'm ready to read. If you are watching this live, get in that chat. Let me know. Give me things to respond to. This is a long chapter. I believe we're coming up on like the last 2 chapters of this book. You'd think that would mean there's only 2 more videos left. I don't know about that. This is a long one. This is like 30 pages. I kind of aim to stream 20 pages at a time. So we'll see how I get once we're 15 pages in. Maybe we'll cut this one in half. I don't know. Maybe. See how long I can hold up when I tap out. This chapter is entitled Immortals. Siddhas. The universe is endless and beginningless. Vishuddhananda was in a mood to talk, and plenty of time lay before us. If you are sincere and work hard, you will eventually reach the state of continual awareness that you are the universal soul, the one, the Atman, or Brahma. Then you can truthfully say to yourself, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Our mortal consciousness has 3 normal stages: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Turiya is the state beyond these 3. In Turiya, you are continually aware of being Brahman, the absolute reality, and of Brahman being all. But it is only the beginning. In spite of knowing yourself to be Brahman, you cannot do everything that Brahman can do. You cannot create, preserve, and destroy universes. It is all very well to know that you are Brahman, but there is an immense difference between imagining that you can create your own universe and actually being able to do so. While you and I are limited to the universe in which we live, a Rishi can create as many universes as there are stars in the sky. The difference between you and a Rishi lies in the power of will. To know that you are the Brahman is jnana, ordinary spiritual knowledge. When there is full knowledge of the Brahman, no iota of ego remains. Discrimination, doubt, and determination disappear. This is nirvikalpa samadhi. You can be satisfied that you have reached the absolute once you have achieved nirvikalpa samadhi. But there is no joy in it. It is dry. It has no juice, no rasa. How can joy exist when everything observed, observer, and observation has ceased to exist? Jnana is good, but vijnana, special knowledge, is far better. When you reach the state of vijnana, you realize, oh, so there is someone behind the scene who is playing about and directing everyone else. When this happens, you become a siddha. Only when you go beyond Turiya can you understand and know siddhas. A siddha is one who returns from nirvikalpa samadhi to perfect his vijnana. Here is how it works. You go from the state of ignorance, in which you possess attributes, to the attributeless state of jnana, and then back to the qualified state again, with a difference. Just compare it to being in the belly of the mother, from which you have to be born over and over again, with being on her lap, where you can play about as much as you like, and she will keep an eye on you. You exist in relation with Maya either way, since you are manifested. But there is a big difference between being in the samsara and being on top of it. A siddha does experience joy and sorrow and other pairs of dualities, but not in the same way as before. Both an ordinary man and a siddha cry when they visit the smashan, which is the true temple of God, the place of eternal reality. An ordinary man cries tears of misery because he suffers from separation. He thinks he has lost something he thought he possessed. A Siddha cries tears of joy because he understands the play of Mahakala, the Lord of Time. Mahakala can have no effect on a Siddha who has gone beyond time, space, and causation. A Siddha can safely admire the play of nature as an inviolate observer. Nowadays, everyone who gets a little siddhi becomes a Siddha. Such people are only fooling the gullible and cheating themselves. Anything you strive to obtain is a siddhi, and you will find that in Kali Yuga, many people are ready to strive for siddhis, for supernatural powers, but few are willing to strive for God. There are plenty of supernatural powers to be had, and many of them are very easy to obtain. One of the simplest is for the control of snakes. You can succeed at it in a single day. Our friend Chotu has done it. He doesn't show off anymore, but in the beginning, just for fun, he would go up to a cobra or a crate, pick it up and hang it around his neck, as if he were Lord Shiva, and the snake would not do a thing. It dare not. Even if he sticks his finger into its mouth, nothing would happen. You Westerners have siddhis too, of course. You have made great... Ow! There we go. That's what I like to hear. Chris Chan popping off. Bill Whitaker tipped $13.37. My man. Glad to have you here. Glad to have the people who care, who support, who love. Where was I? You Westerners have siddhis too, of course. You have made great technological advances in a very short time. You have learned how to see and hear across vast distances, how to fly through the air, how to harness the power of the atom. All these are supernatural powers. You have done your own researches and have demonstrated the results, and it is only right that you insist on seeing the results of our researches before you believe in what we say. The only thing is, all these achievements are outside the body. They are gadgets, external things which can be always lost or broken. Here in India, we have turned our attention inward, and the results we get can never be mislaid or destroyed. This is the big difference between India and the West. Most gurus will tell you to shun siddhis like the plague, and this is correct, in the sense that it is so easy to get attached to them. Obtaining a siddhi is a great achievement, and when you obtain one, it is natural to immediately think of showing off its power to others. But to do so is very foolish and dangerous. The real purpose of siddhis, which exist in the subtle body, is to remove one's karma from the causal body, which is basically just a warehouse of karmas, and then to repay these karmic debts. The subtle body is the intermediary between the causal and physical bodies. It is less subject to gravitation than the physical body. So when it is released from the grasp of the physical body, it can go higher and higher. There is no limit to the heights it can reach, but its main job is to go into the causal body and remove the karmas stored there. Being able to do this still does not make you a siddha. It is easy enough, relatively speaking, to learn how to take out your astral body. It is a greater achievement to be able to sit in one place and maintain consciousness of many different places and many different planes of existence all at once. But even that does not make you a siddha. You must search long and hard before you find a real siddha. You cannot become a siddha over a weekend, nor can you follow a correspondence course and get a diploma by mail. No. You have to work your behind off, literally, sitting in meditation or sitting and performing rituals for lifetimes on end. And even after so much penance, you must still be tested. Naturally, the test for becoming a siddha is very rough. I know the Mahapurusha in Girnar who is responsible for the testing of sadhus. He might come to a sadhu in any form, and his test would take only a minute or two. If the sadhu passed, wonderful. If not, his matted locks would be cut, and he would have to leave Girnar. 99.5% failed. 500-year-old, 1,000-year-old, even 5,000-year-old sadhus couldn't pass. So it is no joke to become a siddha. Vimalananda used the term Mahapurusha, which literally means great soul, to refer to any being who has become immortal as a result of sadhana. Rishis, Munis, Naths, and Siddhas are all Mahapurushas. But it is all worth it. To become a Siddha is a unique accomplishment, because you go beyond all the elements, and you can then play about with them as you please. A Siddha has no physical restrictions. You become immortal, which means that you are ethereal. But whenever you wish, you can materialize a physical body for yourself and move about. Such a body is just like anyone else's body, as solid as can be. Once you've finished whatever it was you wanted to do, you just dematerialize. It's that simple. Each element goes back to its source, earth to earth, water to water, etc. And I've heard of many yogis who say there was no record of them. They were just young men who materialized at the foot of the Himalayas or something like that. Came into society with no history, nobody's sure when or where they were born, anything like that. And they immediately become great gurus. That's a very common thing in India. And a lot of people would attribute that to, there's way more people, less infrastructure. They're keeping poorer records of people. There's a lot more spiritual, I don't know about more, but a different sort of spiritual grifting or con men than we are used to in the West. So you can be suspect of it, but the story pops up time and time again. Southern Polon in the chat, what up, bro? Hypnotized Ninja, whoop whoop. Om Namah Shivaya. I don't know how to say that second thing, I'm not going to try. Here's Redwing over here, like he knows what he's talking about too. Mahashivrati? Mahashivrati. I'll try it. Have I said that? Is that something I've brought up before? I don't recall. That's one of the reasons that I've never found myself like glued to one spiritual path. It's because all of this dogma and all of these words, they basically, for me, go in one ear and out the other, and I'm left with concepts of like repeating patterns and similarities and something perennial. That's just me. I always feel weird at church. I feel way more in touch with God when I'm at home reading a book, even when I'm on stream. Maybe even more so here, because here is my community. It doesn't have to be big. It only has to be people that are like-minded, that I give a shit about. That's where I feel the connection to God. And it's when I'm reading this and I'm getting into it and I'm not making mistakes, I feel like I'm doing it right. And I feel like something else is kind of coming through. Once, a Siddha was gracious enough to demonstrate this to me. He sat in front of me, and within seconds, on the ground where he had been, there was a pile of some solid material, a little puddle of water, and a warm breeze. Just to convince myself, I put out a finger and touched the water. It was real. After a few minutes of being discorporate, he remanifested himself. But there was a flaw on his arm, as if some of the flesh had been dug out. When I asked him about it, he replied, "Didn't you remove a little of the water?" Then I understood. But even that is only the beginning. I know a Mahapurusha who has such perfect knowledge of the earth element that if he even shakes one of his matted locks with his hand, the earth will quake and a giant wave will roll through the ocean. Mortals cannot understand how Siddhas play about. Sometimes, if he feels like it, a Siddha may remove his head from his body and walk around with it in his hands. People will be so amazed to see it that they will run after him just to find out what it might be. When they start to make too big of a noise about it, he will replace it on his shoulders as if nothing had happened. After staying in one place for some time, he may become famous. Then, to prevent being trapped and made to do others' work, he will discorporate and no one will be able to find him. Siddhas are too far away for most people. Unless a Siddha wants to meet you, you will never succeed at meeting him. It's just impossible. Besides, even if you could meet a Siddha, would you know how to react? There are only two ways to react to something which is unknown to you. Either you do as most people do and define the thing according to all the old notions that you have been given by your relatives, friends, teachers, priests, and so on, or you look at it in a new, non-verbal way. If something is really new to you, how will you be able to describe it verbally, since no word exists for it? For example, would you please describe for me the taste of sugar? Ah, well, it's sweet. Yes, but that doesn't describe anything. Sweet can only be tasted. It cannot be described in words. You may hear about sweet all your life, but until you taste sugar, you will never really know what sweetness is. Likewise, you may get the general idea of a thing by talking about it, but words are no substitute for experience. The verbal way is secondhand, which is of no use to a Jnani who wants to experience reality, capital R. How then can it be any use to a Siddha who is 3 steps higher than a Jnani? Siddhas can experience things which most humans would never be able to imagine even after millions of lives. Just one example. The ancient bathing festival, called the Kumbh Mela, the Pot Festival, which is held every 3 years by turns in Hardwar, Prayaga, Allahabad, Nasik, and Ujjain. So that's 4 cities. Hardwar, Prayaga, which is Allahabad, Nasik, and Ujjain. When particular conjunctions are in the sky, they say that a bath in the appropriate holy river at these particular times gives you a drop of Amrita from the celestial pot of nectar. I've always been very interested in Kumbh Mela. Kumbha, Mela, M-E-L-A. Look it up. Check some videos out, because it looks like it's the largest gathering of humanity on Earth. And it's all just these dirty, naked sadhus smoking weed and doing their penances. It's amazing. It's amazing. Look, I've been to some weird places. I was at the gathering of the Juggalos over the summer, and I thought maybe to myself, like, this has got to be one of the weirdest places on Earth. Just for a human to be. One of the weirdest things, one of the weirdest atmospheres you can possibly take in. Kumbh Mela is the one thing I can think of off the top of my head where it's definitely weirder. The most important of these festivals is held in Prayaga, Allahabad, at a place called the Triveni Sangama, where 3 rivers come together, the Ganga, the Yamuna, and the unseen Sarasvati. The Sarasvati is hidden because here it represents Sushumna, the most important of the nadis, the nadi which carries Kundalini to the unmanifest. Sushumna's course is hidden in the body, just as the river Sarasvati's course is hidden on earth. Now, although a bath on the appropriate day in the Triveni Sangama provides some benefit, the Kumbh Mela is basically an esoteric festival. On Kumbh Day, a Siddha need not bother to go to Prayaga for his bath. He has his own Triveni Sangama and his own pot of nectar right inside of him. His Triveni Sangama is his Ajna Chakra, where the Surya and Chandra nadis meet Sushumna. You know the 2 roads to the Ajna Chakra, the right and left nostrils, Jnana and Bhakti. Whichever path you take, your own Triveni Sangama exists in the Ajna Chakra. A Siddha sits where he is, and his ego, his Kundalini Shakti, takes a dip, by which he obtains a drop of Amrita from his own pot of nectar, his own head. So here, I interposed, the pot is like the pot of Gata Sthapana, and does not refer to the chest or to pranayama, even though the word kumbha is used. Oh, but it does refer to pranayama as well. On the specified day at the specified time, the Siddha sits in a certain posture and concentrates his prana on the Vishuddha chakra. His breathing slows down to 2 finger breaths, then to only 1. This is not forcible restraint, remember. This is the true Kevala Kumbhaka, in which the breath slows and then stops automatically when the 2 flows become perfectly balanced. Once the Siddha has balanced his breaths, he draws the prana from both into the Ajna chakra. Ajna stands for what? For Guru Ajna. Instructions from the Guru. Yes, Here the guru is the sun, the world's guru. Breathing slows almost to a stop when the Kundalini Shakti reaches the Ajna chakra. It is not a question of holding the breath in. It is not inhalation, but rather continuous and complete exhalation. If you go for a swim and dive but inhale, you will float. If you exhale, you will sink right down to the bottom, which is necessary here. The ego must dive in and sink to the very bottom of the stream to be cleansed of all her blemishes. When she is totally cleansed, she becomes the Kula Kundalini. At that point, when the Kundalini Shakti is in her purest form, she becomes eligible for holy nuptials with her Shiva. The result is Sadashiva, the eternal form of Shiva. Bill says, nearly lost my job after taking too many Xanax and hitting the garage with the tractor. I'm feeling grateful. Everything blew over. These readings put me at ease after work. That's crazy, brother. I identify with you. I do. Southern Polak in the chat asks, oh, is that the Indian Weed Festival, or am I confused? There are so many festivals in Indian cultures, and there are so many cultures within Indian Hinduism alone. So there are many weed festivals. Many weed festivals. I'm pretty sure. I've heard of at least a few. But yeah, I'm sure at Kumbh Mela they are smoking weed. Yes. And I wouldn't go to a festival where they're not smoking weed, in all honesty. Just keep me the fuck away from that one. Red Wing says, Journeys in the Kali Yuga by Aki Cederberg is a great book about it. A Westerner gone to be initiated under the Naga Babas. That sounds great. I'm going to look that up. Fucking copy and paste that right now. Once again, I'm going to need a new book to read when I'm finished with this. So I'm going to need suggestions, and anybody who donates gets preferential treatment. I've been downloading all sorts of PDFs lately, so that one's going to the top of the list, really. Just as Krishna insists that the gopis show themselves to him naked, Shiva will lie with Kundalini only when she becomes completely naked, completely stripped of all the three coverings, especially the three gunas. When I was a naked sadhu, I would always ask any other naked sadhu I might meet, just by taking off your clothes, do you achieve anything? Do you become liberated? Only if you can remove sattva, rajas, and tamas have you really taken something off. Otherwise, no. You probably were not very popular as a sadhu, I opined. No, but why should I be popular? I was not trying to win any popularity contests. A sadhu should be searching for truth, not approval. And to get to the truth, you have to become truly naked. You have a phrase in English, the naked truth. Translated into Sanskrit, it becomes Nagna Satya, which could also mean truth is naked, or nakedness is truth. I like that last version, nakedness is truth. The true nakedness comes when you peel off the three coatings of the ego, the three gunas, the 6 tastes, and the 5 elements. Only then does she become true. They say Sanskrit is a dead language, but I think we've just created a new word. A water bath will not remove any of your real stains. It takes a mental bath to do the job. The stream of Amrita, in which the ego bathes, is a glandular substance, a secretion of the pineal gland. The conjunction of the constellations causes the pineal and pituitary to hypersecrete, releasing a stream of Amrita in which to bathe the ego. So by bathing in one of the 4 holy cities on Kumbh Day, you get your physical bath. And by this internal process, you take a spiritual bath. Then you become eligible for your astral or Adidaivika bath, which unfortunately is indescribable. People come and go, enjoying the external Kumbh bath over and over again. But this spiritual bath is something quite different. No one ever likes to return from this internal bath. Rishis, Munis, Naths, and Siddhas. After pausing to light a cigarette, Vimalananda continued, to become a Siddha is... Let me read that again. That didn't feel right. After pausing to light a cigarette, Vimalananda continued. There we go. To become a Siddha is wonderful, marvelous, but it is not the ultimate. If your Kundalini should ever reach the Sahasrara, you will see so many things that you will be amazed. You will see hundreds and hundreds of flowers of all colors. Each of those flowers is a Shakti. And if you pluck one of them, you will get that Shakti, which will keep you on the periphery. Which will keep you on the periphery. Periphery. let me get it right. Which will keep you on the periphery. You will form a little orbit for yourself, and you may remain there for ages. Siddhas usually stay in their own orbits because they are so fascinated by what they have achieved. Only if they are forcibly pulled further by some higher authority will they move ahead, and when they do, they see that there are much better orbits to move into. To progress as a Siddha, you must forget about everything else except getting closer and closer to the center. It is almost impossible to reach the center, which is the preserve of the seniormost of the Rishis, But you can get closer and closer to it. If at any time you decide you've had enough of existence, you can completely efface your personality and merge into the center. I strained to conceptualize it. I think this is where the sense of the universe and all of creation as a fractal comes in, because that makes things much easier. A fractal is a geometric figure that is infinitely complex. It is a pattern that repeats itself over and over, and as you zoom in on the edges of it, it is constantly repeating in slightly different expressions, but always calling back to the center where it emanates from. Try to get some perspective on what I am talking about here. Even after you become a Siddha, it takes time to progress further. Of course, a Mahapurusha, who has gone beyond time, space, and causation, has no value for time. But to you and me, it seems impossibly long. After thousands of years of penance, a Siddha may be permitted to meet a Nath and learn from him. If a Siddha works really hard, he can even become a Nath. Naths are aghoris. They make everything in their being self-identify with Lord Shiva, even under the most trying and tempting circumstances. Their motto is Alak Niranjan. Alak means Alaksha, free from attribution or discrimination. Niranjana means completely clean, free of any fault, stain, or blemish. What is that thing which is undefined and undefiled? The absolute imperishable Brahman. Most people would be terrified to see a Nath in his real form, with matted locks, big fire tongs, bag full of ashes, and fierce, unblinking eyes. So all the Nath sadhus who dress this way are actually dressing in imitation of the real Naths, the Immortals? Yes! And each part of their costume has some meaning behind it. It's not just fanciful. Nath sadhus are known as Kanfatas, pierced ears, because of the large earrings they are given by their gurus when they are initiated. The earrings stay in for as long as the sadhu lives, and the rule used to be that if an earring should break, the sadhu should immediately commit suicide. I suspect that very few Nath sadhus follow this rule nowadays. Does the word earring remind you of anything? It reminds me of Kundalini, since Kundala means earring. Correct. So there is a connection between the earring and Kundalini, or more precisely, between where the ear is pierced and Kundalini. The ear is full of important nadis, which is why the Chinese have gone in for ear acupuncture in such a big way. Nath sadhus are expected to be celibate, And one reason why they pierce their ears is because when you pierce the earlobe in just the right place, you can prevent hydrocele, Hydrocele, which may become a complication of celibacy. Should I look that up? Let's look that up. A type of swelling in the scrotum that occurs when fluid collects in the thin sheath surrounding a testicle. Your balls are full of cum? Is that what he's implying? I don't think so. That's probably not what he's implying. Can't help myself. Big old cum balls. Sorry. If they are supposed to remain celibate, what difference does it make if they become impotent? On the contrary, that should make them happy, shouldn't it? Think about it. If they lose their sexual energy entirely, what will they have left to use to help awaken Kundalini? Oh, right. You have to be virile to practice Tantra. The immortal Naths are passionately devoted to their guru, Dattatreya, and they dress as they do in honor of Adi Nath, the first Nath, Lord Shiva. Thus, Shiva is not the guru here. He is a fellow disciple of Dattatreya, the first of all Aghoris. Can you imagine what sort of being Dattatreya is if his original pupil was Shiva himself? I tried to imagine Lord Dattatreya. Wah wah, says Vimalananda admiringly. Naths are really naths. Naths are really, naths in quotes, it's the same thing. Naths are really naths. Masters. Sorry. Let's get this right. Naths are really masters. They are masters of the 10 senses. Makes more sense if I say it like that, huh? A special nerve is created, the 11th sense, which permits them to receive their instructions telepathically. Naths are higher than Siddhas because they get telepathic transmissions directly from their bosses, the Munis. This is why Naths are always waiting for Adesha, for instructions. That which is heard without the ears, seen without the eyes, spoken without the tongue. Because they are immortal and have complete control over their senses, Naths are masters of the physical world also. Just by pissing or even spitting on a rock, a Nath can produce gold. In alchemy, you have to use metal as your raw material, but a Nath only needs a rock. He has eaten and digested all types of poisons, which has changed his metabolism so much that he has become a touchstone himself. So naturally, a Nath will have no value for gold, or for people like kings who do value it. They only have value for the gold of pure consciousness. A Nath is really a spiritual touchstone. Whoever comes in contact with a Nath must become spiritual, must become a real man or woman of God, whether they want to or not. This is the power of a Nath. The Naths have a different way of teaching altogether. Once, while Gorak Nath was sitting at his dhuni, he saw that the king's wife had died and that the king was crying as if his world had come to an end. Gorak decided to go and meet the king. He brought along an earthen pot, and when he entered the king's presence, he suddenly dropped it. It shattered into 100 pieces, and Gorak began to wail, "I have lost my beautiful pot. I loved it so dearly. Now it is gone forever." The king looked at him in amazement and said, "Have you gone mad? Are you crying over an old pot? You can buy hundreds of them at the market." Gorak said to the king, "Maharaja, you are the ruler of the country, and in your harem there are many beautiful women. And besides, you can obtain any woman that you desire. Where is the need to cry over one lost woman?" The king replied, "But she was so beautiful, so wonderful, and she had so many virtues that endeared her to me." In answer, Gorak took some ash from his shoulder bag and threw it on the ground. Immediately, 2 living women appeared, each a perfect copy of the king's dead wife. Gorak asked the king, "Can you tell me which of these is yours? If you knew her so well, you should be able to recognize her." But the king couldn't distinguish which was his wife. Both looked exactly alike, and then Gorak said to him, "King, you cannot even recognize your wife. and yet you are pining away for her. Now who is a fool, you or I? And the king understood. The Naths are actually the creations of certain munis, who in turn are merely the manifestations of a few rishis. But each group, in turn, is kept in ignorance of their true nature, so that the lila, the cosmic play, can go on. They are limited in their new existences in order to perform certain tasks. If the Naths and munis knew who they were, they wouldn't perform their duties properly. A Nath waits millions of years to meet a muni, and after long austerities, a Nath can finally become a muni. Actually, a muni should be called a mauni, one who observes silence. He does not speak in Vaikari at all. He communicates only with his eyes or telepathically. A muni must wait yugas, or manvantaras, to catch even a glimpse of a rishi, and then, if he is meant for it, after many billions of years of being a muni, he may get a chance to become a rishi. The lower categories of Mahapurusha are all in orbit. Each has his own orbit, but all are bound, however slightly. A rishi, though, is totally free. He can travel to any star, any solar system he likes, in the twinkling of an eye. Does this apply to women, too? A woman who succeeds to the attributeless state comes back as a Bhairavi or Yogini. Here also, the hierarchy is very strict. After so many yugas, she moves up to become a great goddess, and finally, she retires to the background like the senior-most rishis do, to let others enjoy the play. Actually, those in the background control all the players, like a puppeteer pulling the puppet's strings. But no one is aware of it, except the senior-most Shaktis and Shaktimans. A flicker of confused emotion crossed my face, and Vimalananda increased his vehemence. Yes, I know what I am saying. The rishis are the puppeteers, and all other beings in the universe, mortal and immortal, are their puppets. The rishis go around creating mas, karmic debts, or rina. I'm sorry, man. That R and N runs together. I do that every time. I'll stop apologizing to you people. Also, there's no reason to do that. Sorry to myself. Sorry to my Lord for not being able to pronounce every syllable properly. But maybe that's part of how this is all kept secret. The rishis are the puppeteers, and all other beings in the universe, mortal and immortal, are their puppets. The rishis go around creating rinas. I think that's rinas, karmic debts, for people to work off, to bind people down and help them progress. If you want to quit being a puppet, you must perform sadhana. Notable Siddhas. To meet a Nath, Muni, or Rishi, or one of the supreme Shaktis, is almost impossible. But you may be able to meet Siddhas. I was very fortunate to have met Telang Swami, who is a great Siddha. It says see AGHORA, meaning the first book in the series, where he talks about Telang Swami in depth. When I was in the Himalayas, I met Babaji, the Siddha who Yogananda talks about. Babaji is a good Siddha, no doubt, but his sister is even better than he is. So, Babaji is a very interesting character, and I was thinking about this a second ago when I was talking about, like, young gurus just, like, appearing at the foot of the Himalayas to become great teachers. I want to say, what mountain was it? Was it Kailash? Let's look this up. Haidakhan Babaji. That's who I was thinking of, and this is a relatively recent one. Let me go into this a little bit for no reason. Let's dig into it. Haidakhan Babaji, simply called Babaji by his students and devotees, was a religious teacher who appeared near the village of Haidakhan in northern India and taught publicly from 1970 until his death in 1984. He has a following in the Western world and 2 ashrams in India. So I think this is one person who is taken on the mantle of Babaji, and it's argued about in different sects about, like, who was real Babaji, who wasn't real, and the Babaji from the Autobiography of a Yogi, which is another book I could read. He talks about how Babaji is the originator of his line of succession of guruship. And it goes very in depth about his meetings with this cosmic figure who comes once in a while, who appears in human skin to people once in a while. I've also heard of people meeting Babaji on Mount Shasta in California and many other places too. Let me tell you about another Siddha I met. He is a very unusual person, even among the many unusual people in this universe. Some years ago, a policeman saw a man wandering around in the backwaters of Cochin, in what is now the state of Kerala. Excuse me. When the policeman stopped him and asked his name, the man replied, "My name is Prabhakaran, and I have come to look after the interests of my great-great-great-grandchildren." The policeman thought he was trying to be funny and asked him his age. The man replied, "More than 700 years." The policeman ran him in. Prabhakaran told the policeman at the station that he did not eat or drink anything, so the jailers informed him, "We are going to keep you in solitary confinement without food and water, and no toilet either." Prabhakaran said, "Okay." When 5 days, 6 days later, Prabhakaran was still in perfect shape, the jailers had to admit his abilities. Then they asked him, "Does anyone know you?" Prabhakaran replied, "Ask C.P. Ramaswamy. C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer. I once saved his life. As soon as they telephoned Sir C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer, who was then the Prime Minister of Travancore, also now part of Kerala, he immediately flew to Cochin to meet Prabhakaran and insisted that Prabhakaran return with him to Travancore. But Prabhakaran said, "No, I prefer to go back to the sea." As soon as he had seen to the well-being of his descendants, he walked out into the ocean. But that was nothing for him. He had already spent 400 years in the Himalayas and 200 years in the sea. He is a Siddha, after all. I recently learned that a man, whom some had identified as Prabhakaran, had been living on land for some years in an ashram, spending most of his time dancing in Bhava Samadhi. Eventually, he announced to everyone that he had enough of existence after 700 years, and that he had decided to leave his body in 10 days, and so he did. And then there was Vishuddhananda. He was the pride of India, a real Siddha, not like these Babas who produce ash from the air and so on. On the day I first met him in Benares, he was in such a fine mood that he began to press the area around his navel, and suddenly a lotus stalk came out, like the one at Vishnu's navel. Suddenly a lotus stalk came out, like the one at Vishnu's navel. As he continued to press, it became longer, and a red lotus blossom appeared. Why red? Because red represents the fire element, which resides at the navel, the Manipura chakra. There was a beautiful fragrance. After some time he pressed it, and it returned into his body, back through the navel. You may believe it or not, I don't care. Nor did he pause to discover whether or not I believed it. The navel is really a very interesting structure. If you know the technique, you can take in water through your navel and excrete it through your penis. Everyone in the world today performs creation, or rather procreation, with the penis. But Brahma, the creator of the cosmos, does it with his navel, because he is himself created from Vishnu's navel. After this performance, Vishuddhananda's chief disciple, Pandit Gopinath Kaviraj, who was the greatest authority on Indian culture of his time, permitted a big smirk to escape onto his face. He was thinking, yes, my Guru Maharaj can do this. What can you do? He bedraggled Agori. What can you do? What can you do, you bedraggled Agori? Bedraggled. I've never seen that word in my life. It threw me off. Yes, my Guru Maharaj can do this. What can you do, you bedraggled Agori? I looked at him and said, have you ever heard of Vajroli? He said that he had. Bring me some mercury, I told him. Now Vishuddhananda was doing research on mercury, and there was plenty on hand. They brought a 56-pound sealed tin and opened it in front of me. I sucked the mercury up with my penis. That is the coolest thing. That's so cool. I want to do this. They were all gaping. Then I said, AGHORA Nath is going to show you a little something about mercury. Wring my hair, and all the mercury that had been taken inside was recovered from my matted locks. That put us on a more equal footing. Vishuddhananda was an expert at Surya Vijnana, the knowledge of how to make best use of the sun. Do you think this is simple? Never. Only when you understand the significance of the phrase Surya Putra Agni Mitra, son of the sun. Woo! Yeah, was that a sub? Love it, love it. Thanks, Brandon, for the sub. Dig it. I'm not going to do it today. No, Bob Chandler, I will not do it today. Can't make me. Where were we? Son of the sun, friend of the fire. Can you even hope to know Surya Vijnana? It has something to do with purification of the fire element in the body, of course. Vishuddhananda would take an ordinary object like a cookie and put it on a large tray. Then he would direct sun rays onto it through certain yantras, and the cookie would become a little puppy. Yes, it would come alive and move about. He would allow it to play for a bit, and then he would change the yantra slightly, and the puppy would become a flower. Another change and a living human baby would appear. Finally, he would change the thing into a sprig of tulsi, holy basil, and would give it to someone to be offered to the river Ganga. He would store the beads of his rosary in his arm. When he wanted to do japa, he would remove them, string them, and use the completed rosary to count his japas. After finishing the number of japas he had decided to do, he would unstring the rosary and replace the beads in his arm. And there was no hole, no scar, nothing to show where they had gone in or come out. He even used to keep a Shiva linga, made of solidified mercury, in a hollow in his palate. I spent some time with him in Benares. One day while he and I were together, he became rather intoxicated with his powers, and suddenly a skull he was holding began to move its jaw as if it were talking. I got the idea, and suddenly two rocks lying nearby began to knock into one another over and over again, until they were pounded into rubble. And he also got my idea. When two people compete, the outcome can only be destructive, just as the rocks destroyed each other. Vishuddhananda was a true Siddha. He learned his Vijnana at Lake Manasasarovar. In Tibet. Okay, I'm giving up on that one. At the lake in Tibet. It was at the lake. But even he had one fault. He showed himself off to so many people. To too many people. And when he was ready to leave his body for good, he had to suffer from diarrhea to purge all the samsara from him. Excess in all things is to be rejected. Vishuddhananda lived for many years on the portal of the main post office in Benares, so it was not easy for him to avoid people. The law of karma, however, makes no allowances. He did not need to die, of course. He was a Siddha, but he wanted to die so that he could continue to make further progress. To become a Siddha is a great accomplishment, but it is nothing compared to being a Rishi. Hypnotized Ninja in the chat says, my dad's friends have actually met Prabhakar Siddha Yogi. Very cool. You seem to know a lot about this. I dig it. Do you have stories? Let me know. We got Logan in the chat. Literally me. Glad I'm not the only one sucking up mercury into my penis and swinging it around in front of my girlfriend, make my dog bark. True story. Not with the mercury. Never did that. I will one day. Rishis. Where are we at? 2:15. I'm going to do a few more. How long have I been reading? That's another question. Just under an hour. So I'm probably going to get to the next section and stop there. This is a long chapter. Like I said, I aim for 20 pages per session. I'll do 15 here and then another 15. That'll cover this chapter. And then I think there's one more chapter after that. So a few more videos before I finish this and need something new to read. Rishis. Vishuddhananda lit yet another cigarette. Nothing is ever lost in the universe. Even things which happened millions of years ago can still be known, because their sound still exists. Sound, which is vibration, a series of waves, can be transmitted in many ways. Light can carry sound. Even modern science has proved this. Humans usually perceive sound via molecules of air that vibrate. In light, something else vibrates, but sound is there within light all at the same time. It may be in a form subtler than the ear can hear, but it is there nonetheless, and anyone who has access to subtle sounds can hear it. This is why the Veda is called Shruti, that which is heard, to distinguish from later texts written by men, which are called Smriti, that which is remembered. Think of what happened to the first person to become aware of this subtle sound. One day, as he is sitting blankly, he starts to meditate on what is. It's natural to do so. After prolonged meditation, he remembers the first sound, the original word, the strongest mantra of Shakti. This first sound that he hears is the Adinatha, the most ancient, the sound Om, which is none other than Lord Shiva. As he continues with his meditation, he progresses from stage to stage to become Paramahamsa, then a Siddha, a Nath, and a Muni, and finally a Rishi. The word Rishi means he who sees. A Rishi is a seer who sees with the divine eye of perception, who hears with the divine ear. Everything that has happened in the past. When he speaks with the divine tongue. Whatever he says must take place. The Vedas are made up of mantric hymns, which were seen, not composed, by certain rishis. They heard the subtle sounds which make up these hymns and translated them into words, sounds that the human ear can hear. These mantric hymns can provide evolutionary leaps in the progress of those who know how to properly use them. The rishis throw these hymns around, checking to see who can take their power. Some sadhus and yogis call themselves rishis, but I'm afraid they are all talking out their wits. Talking out of their wits. The rishis are very different from ordinary humans like you and me in every way. A rishi is an immortal being, a being who lives for spans of time which are almost inconceivable to us humans. A rishi can create a body for himself whenever he pleases, and whenever he is through with that body, he can dissolve it. In this way, a rishi can know every particle of every dimension, because he knows the characteristics of and has experienced every possible womb. The books say that there are 8,400,000 wombs in which to be born. The numerological significance of this number is 8 plus 4 equals 12, and 1 plus 2 equals 3. The three gunas which make up the ocean of Maya in which we are all floundering. Actually, though, no one knows how many wombs there are in the universe, because wombs are innumerable. Any situation into which your consciousness is riveted when you die acts as your womb. Once, Narada asked Lord Shiva this question of how many wombs there are in the universe. Shiva replied, "I only take life, I do not create it. Please ask Vishnu." But Vishnu told Narada, "I only preserve life. I am not in the business of creating either. Please go to Brahma." And Brahma said, "Listen, I just create the wombs. I haven't been keeping count of how many I've created. You'll have to ask someone else." But there was no one else to ask. Only certain rishis have experienced all the existing wombs, so only they really know how to commiserate with all suffering beings. This is why a rishi is a Mahanubhavi, a great experiencer. This is also why a rishi is the embodiment of motherliness. and why there is so much to learn from a Rishi, if you can ever locate one. That, of course, is the problem. We're at the next section, time and space. I think I'm going to cut it there at about an hour. Logan asks, how much pus is on the green globe Pishna? I have no idea what that means. You guys are talking about some esoteric stuff. Yo, I heard you on GABA. I get 2,400 milligrams a day, dude. That gabapentin, that's some decent stuff. Makes you feel good. You're not even like high. You just feel really good. Your whole body's kind of buzzing. Love that stuff. Oh, Nordy, what up, bro? Gotcha. So, yeah, I thank you for being with me. Go to yakobees.com. Listen to those podcasts. Hit that merch tab. Patreon.com/yakovalive to get in the Discord and hang out. We talk religion, history, war these days. Watch movies, play video games. Come hang out. And I appreciate Bill, particularly in the chat, for throwing me a little bit of money during this. That makes it so worth it, dude. You don't know how much that means to me. And it's not much money. I get that, and we all get that. But that little bit, like, that's what I need. If I can get that every day, I have more than enough reason to continue doing this and more stuff and whatever you guys want, to put more effort into it even. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone else who is in the chat. Thanks to Ninja, Southern Polak, yeah, dude, Nordy, everybody. I'll catch you guys, Red Wing, catch you guys on the flip side.